hope you all are doing well. If you're new, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Thank you to all of my subscribers who are here. Thank you so much. Today, I wanted to talk to you about a very important topic that really affects us all, especially in this day and age. It is going on for years and years and years in society, but I believe that from my observation, and I have seen this since like the last 20 years or so, like really caught my attention. For about 20 years or so, I started realizing, and the realization came for me, actually the first time I ever heard about it was when back in Germany, when I was doing my PhD, there was a Olympic athlete who was young. I think he was in his 20s, mid-20s, maybe early 20s, I forgot. And I forgot his name, but if I remember, I will find out, and if I remember or I find out his name, I will put down his name too. But he was like the star in Germany, and so there was so much hope. He was a Winter Olympics athlete, and he was winning one Olympics after an Olympics after Olympics. So he was really like this, like he was the Michael Phelps in Winter Olympics in Germany. So it was so much hope, there was so much pressure, so much media attention, and then suddenly he dropped his career and he literally retired like immediately. And it was like boom, like from one day to the next, and we were like all boom, shocked, like what the hell happened. So and then they announced it that, or actually he made it public that he is suffering under burnout syndrome. And that was the first time I've ever heard about that terminology. So I have never forgotten about that. It really affected me so much that it just like, I don't know, it was in my mind all the time. This is like since I would say 20 years. My observation, and also here, me coming to the US, you know, doing my PhD, doing all like this high performance work, and then coming here to the US at Harvard and working. I mean, I am generally already a hardworking person. Like, I am like that, and I know many people's personality is like that, and it is okay for people like us to work hard. I mean, it's not like a big deal, so we can manage it. So when I was at Harvard also, and many people like me, you know, at Harvard, we were like, you know, I don't know, I was in the lab doing cancer research, I don't know, from 8 a.m. until 12 a.m. or sometimes 2 a.m. I was biking home, you know, at 2 a.m. In the night, and then I saw like some weird animals on the street in the middle of the night, like possums and stuff like that. Never seen in my life before. So like wild animals in late of the night. But the interesting part was that I was able to manage, for example, whenever I had an experiment, I would go to the gym, and then I would go swimming, and then come back and it was running something else, and then I had like, I don't know, this 2-hour break, and oh, not break, but like this 2-hour waiting time of the experiment, and then I would go, I don't know, go and have dinner, whatever. So it was like always like this balance of, I was able to manage it. But of course, when you get step by step higher in your career, there's so much more pressure, there's so much more expectations. Also, the society expects from you a lot, right? Like, you now need to be in this certain position and you have to be performing this. And that's the point also, that the more you give, the more you are being expected to give. And that's true for everything. It's true at home, that's true within your relationship, that's true in your family, that's true at work. The more you give, the more people will take from you and expect you to give and give and give and give and give, because you constantly give and don't take care of yourself. So, and what I am seeing and observing for the last 20 years, and also, seeing within in my life too, and all of the people and all my colleagues and friends, not only that, I have keep saying this for the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years, that I personally believe and I've observed that the midlife crisis is not in the 50s anymore. It gets lower and lower and lower and lower by age. Now, 20 years ago it was like down to 40s. You start to have midlife crises, and then in the 30s. Now the midlife crisis is, believe it or not, in the people who are in the 20s. That's really a reality. And if you're a high performer, burnout syndrome is mainly seen by high performers like Olympic athletes. You will see this all the time. The mental involvement in the burnout syndrome is something that actually causes all the rest of your body, so you're unable to perform anymore. And when you see athletes like Olympic athletes really drop from one day to the next, that's most likely a burnout syndrome, because the body is so done that it's done. Like, the body cannot function anymore. So what I want to talk about in this video, and I would like to make this as a 3-part series. Today I would like to talk about what burnout syndrome is and the steps of the burnout syndrome, so that you can understand, assess whether or not you have that yourself too. If you do, in which part, in which step you are at, so that you can start to maneuver. In the next video, I will be talking about, once you find out you have a burnout syndrome, what you can do about it. And in the next video, I will be talking about what can you do, say, if you are in one of these stages that I'm going to talk about in a minute, what can you do to prevent, or if you see the first signs of the burnout syndrome I'm talking about in this video, what can you do about it? Meaning prevention of burnout syndrome. Okay, so that was a long intro, and now let's get started. So what is burnout syndrome? I'm going to read it for you. This is all scientific, and again, as you all know, I do only videos with information that's backed up with science and scientific papers, because I am a scientist and I believe in science and scientific facts. So other videos that I do make are more about my experience and my observations, and I combine the two. Okay, so burnout syndrome is a syndrome of emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and a sense of low personal accomplishment that leads to decreased effectiveness at work. So there are stages of burnout syndrome, so it doesn't happen from one day to the next. There's a subtle change in step by step how it develops. And because of that, because it's so subtle, you might miss the symptoms that leads from one stage to the next, from one stage to the next, from one stage to the next, and then it grows exponentially. And then when it really hits the burnout syndrome, and then what comes after that, then your body is already like pretty darn affected. So let's talk about the stages. So let's try and find out where in these stages we are at, and to recognize it. And then next video I'm going to talk about what we can do about it. Okay, the first stage of burnout syndrome is the honeymoon phase. In the honeymoon phase, say for example you got a good job, you got your dream job, you're an athlete, you're on your favorite team, and you're so excited, you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna give my best, that's it, I'm gonna reach the next level, that's amazing, so I can do this, I can do that. You have all these like incredible amounts of hopes and dreams and wishes, which is all fantastic. This is great. This is really great. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And because we are in this honeymoon phase, we all have been through that, right? We all tend to give our 100 million%, correct? Like we give our 200%, 300%, and more and more. And there's always and because, as you know, in the first time in your job, you always say yes, right? More tasks. Let's say if you're new faculty, right? If you're assistant professor, you have this 10 million assignments in this committee, and you say to all of them, yes, 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 yes. And then you might be in medical research, you run your own lab, and this is and you teach at the same time, and you do all these committees. And you are really starting to giving, but you're doing this with so much excitement and passion and joy, right? This is the honeymoon phase. Then there's stage 2, and that is called onset of stress. So you have given your 100 billion%, you're so excited, and then you take on all of this, right? You take on and on and on, and that point, you start to really feel it's too much. You're in a stage you feel too much, you don't know how to juggle with all of this. You have your maybe home responsibilities, you have your family, you have your friends. You start to see them less. You start to feel oh my God, how am I going to do all of this? Let me extend my working hours. I have so many tasks to finish. I have so many projects to finish. Let me train more if I'm athlete, right? Let me see my family less. Let me see my friends less. Let me see my husband or wife less, or my girlfriend or boyfriend less. Let me do this much. Let me do on the weekends. Let me do late at night or very early in the morning. Let me skip my yoga, or let's skip this training because I have to finish all of this. So it starts to accumulate the stress, the irritability, the less personal life, the inability to focus on the job that you have. Everything becomes too much. And then you start to avoid things, you start to avoid making decisions. You start to feel your appetite has changed. You don't feel so much hungry anymore. You start to drink more coffee to stay awake, stay alert. And you start to feel you have more headache. You start to feel your eating habits get out of balance. You skip lunch, you skip dinner, you skip breakfast. Regardless, even though you work so much, you find that it's less productive. You are kind of circling on the same spot, or just go one step ahead and 2 steps backwards. It's kind of a start to become a mess, okay? And that is the second stage, onset of stress. Now the stage 3 is chronic stress. So now we are getting stress to become chronic, not onset anymore, chronic. Anything that's chronic is really bad. So whatever disease it is, whatever issue it is, we always must make sure that it does not reach the chronic stage. So the chronic stress looks by the way, I forgot to mention the second stage. It obviously, in the onset of stress, with all your changes in your body, right, the appetite, etc., the sleeplessness or the changes in your sleeping habits on restful sleep is also important sign of stress. And sleep is I will do another video just for sleeping, because sleeping is really key in our lives. So in this chronic stage of stress, there will be chronic fatigue, chronic tiredness, irritability is increased, procrastination started to happen. Then you start to become aggressive. Your personal life has changed. Even your sexual life has changed. And you become so much irritable. You become more apathetic. So you have no apathy. You feel like you're chronically exhausted. You feel like you completely have withdrawn from society. You want to just be at home, at peace. You don't want to go out. You don't want to feel like meeting with people. You don't feel like doing sports. You don't feel like the old happiness anymore that you had. You feel like you have constant pressure from somewhere. You feel constantly under pressure. You even feel threatened by the surroundings, by your environment. And then you start to feel relief with alcohol, with drugs, with smoking, with all sorts of bad habits. And this is actually the chronic stage of stress. Not to mention lack of sleep, lack of good diet and balanced diet, regular diet, lack of regular sleep or enough sleep. All of these are the signs of chronic stress. Sounds really horrible, doesn't it? And when I go through this, I want you to please recognize what stage you are at, okay? And what symptoms do you have? With full honesty, though. That's the whole point. With full honesty. Think about, because if you're not honest with yourself, then you cannot get treated, cannot eliminate all of this and feel better and enjoy your life again, okay? So stage 4 is we arrive to burnout syndrome. Stage 4 after chronic stress is burnout. In burnout syndrome, or once you reach burnout, you feel pessimistic of the outlook of life. You feel obsessed with your problems, constantly thinking about your problems. You are completely withdrawn from the society, from your loved ones. You have self-doubt as to, you are a loser, you are not good enough. You are self-criticizing. You feel like you haven't achieved enough. You feel like nothing that you did until now mean anything. So you have a constantly self-doubt about everything in your life, about you. You have constantly headache. You have physical changes. You look different. Because your internal is different, right? You have constant negativity. You have, as in stress stages, you started to have headache, right? With the onset of stress and then chronic stress, your headache increased, and now you have really steady chronic headaches. You have now literally GI problems. You have bloating, you have gas, you have constipation, you have now developed these irritability, hypersensitivity for certain foods. You have completely changes in sleep. You are not rested. Whatever how much you sleep, you don't feel rested. You completely neglect your personal needs. You feel that your personal needs are always pushed aside. You cannot rest your mind. You feel like you have behavioral changes. You cannot recognize yourself anymore, or others say to you that you are so different. You weren't like this before. You have changed. So behavioral changes. And also, and we see this now a lot, these are escapist activities. Meaning, because you lack of focus, you're constantly in your head, you do escapist activities such as you're constantly on your phone, you're constantly on YouTube, you're constantly on Netflix, you're constantly, instead of doing your task, you now cook, you're just now taking a shower, or just now you go outside and run. It is always like doing this escapist activities that prevents you to focus on one task and the next task and next task. step by step even. So those are burnout syndrome symptoms. Please note if you do recognize any or many of these symptoms. And the final stage, stage 5, is the habitual burnout. That means that burnout syndrome has extensified so much that you have now depression, you have chronic sadness, you have chronic fatigue, chronic mental fatigue, chronic physical fatigue. Those symptoms have become chronic GI issues, chronic migraine, headaches, chronic escapism, chronic bad outlook in life, and again, as I said, depression. Very, very important, very, very critical. So I'm planning also to do another series for depression, because I believe that depression is the key in all the chronic diseases. And burnout syndrome actually is the beginning of this, depression. And also our habits, about our eating habits, our sleeping habits. Believe or not, you will see in my depression video, those are incredibly important for development of depression. So I will do a next video on, once you find out you have any or all of these symptoms, don't be hard on yourself. Wait for my next video, how you can get treated, what can you do about it, and then how you can really get step by step out of this either habitual burnout or any of the other, hopefully beginning stages of the burnout syndrome. What employers need to do is to make sure that the mental stage is extremely well kept of all of the employees. Everything what they can do to make sure that the employee or the athlete is in a great mental stage, and recognizing themselves and learn for themselves. If you are an employer, if you have a small business and you have like even 2, 3, 10 employees, learn as an employer what these stages are and try to recognize as an employer if you see any of these symptoms of your employees, and try to implement the next things I'm going to say in my next video about what you can do about it and how to create a great working environment so that employees, if they don't recognize themselves, you can recognize as an employer and try to make sure they are balanced. Remember, good, healthy working environment, good, healthy employees means good, healthy work and job and the outlook of the company, of the organization. Otherwise, it will go down. Forget about good outlook of the company. Again, if you are a manager, if you are a sports team, if you have athlete that you manage, look at of these habits. If you recognize in any of these stages that the athlete has these symptoms, please stop the money, stop everything. Important is that that athlete is set mentally, physically, and do everything what you can to make sure that athlete is healthy mentally and physically. Okay, so I hope this was helpful to you. Let me know if you have any questions. Comment down in the comment box. Do you have any of the symptoms, 1, 2, 3, or all of them? What do you think, in which stage you are at? Let me know. I'm very curious. I'm sure, I am just like 100% sure we are all in any of these stages. It's just like, especially it really increases year by year by year. Very, very bad. That's why please share this video with others. Let them know what you have learned and make sure they learn it too. And if you have friends and colleagues, if they are employees, have small businesses, right? Or even if they are large, gigantic corporations, share this video with them. Make sure they also understand what burnout syndrome is, what the stages are, and make sure that the employee is healthy and happy. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking my video, and I will see you in my next video. Take care. Bye-bye.